Iranians is a volunteer-led, non-partisan, multi-faith coalition of Iranians and allies in the greater Philadelphia area. We're advocating for a free Iran and stemming from the Woman Life Freedom Revolution. We are committed to forging intentional connections between the Iranian and non-Iranian communities. We want to shed light on the nuances of the Iranian identity, revealing our lived experiences and shared humanity. We want to also build trust and allyship at the micro level, while nurturing empathy and compassion at the macro level. We strive to do this through community gatherings such as this one, support groups, events, and showcase Iranian culture, peaceful demonstrations, protests, and more. So please, this QR code leads you to our Philly Iranians Instagram page where you can learn more. We also have a website, so you can, for events, follow us on Instagram, and we can also take your email and email you about them as well if you're interested, so let us know. We are honored today to welcome a panel of Iranians from the Philadelphia area, along with our outstanding moderator, Erica Watson-Brown. Erica holds a BA in business from Cabrini University and a master's in education in reading from Concordia University, and she has spent 10 years as an elementary educator in New Jersey. Her professional experience shapes her research on how federal policies affect educational outcomes in urban P-12 settings. Erica actively presents at major conferences and contributes to initiatives such as STEAM workshops for girls. Currently, Erica is a doctoral candidate specializing in urban education and diverse learning environments. Erica, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. I am going to use the mic this afternoon. I think it elevates the talk just a bit. It seems more official, even though, no, this is great. Thank you so much for the introduction and also allowing us to spend the afternoon with you to talk about really important issues as it relates to the lived experiences and the intersection of how Iranians experience that here in the United States. And so I'm going to start off by providing you some history about our panelists that I think is really important for us to structure the conversation, and also just so you can get to know a little bit better about these wonderful individuals who are, going to share, again, their experiences in terms of where they come from is being shaped now in this space, and what that looks like now. And I think it's important for that conversation. So without further ado, I want to start with the first bio with Dr. Shahrazad Mizagi. Holds a PhD and is Director of Strategic Technical Solutions at, is it ColorCon? Okay, I was mispronouncing, thank you. Where she works at the intersection of science and innovation to advance solutions that improve patients' lives. She was born in the United States and raised in Iran in the years following the Islamic Revolution. She is a member of the Baha'i faith, a community that has faced long-standing persecution in Iran. Denied access to formal higher education, she pursued her studies through the Baha'i Institute for Higher Education, where she studied pharmacy before returning to the United States to continue her academic journey. Her experiences, both personal and professional, inform her perspective as she shares an often untold story shaped by resilience, identity, and the pursuit of education. And then if you like, I can read your quote. Is that a quote from me? I have a quote. You have a quote from this thing? That no man can attain.
Oh, that was in my email.
Oh, that's your email. I thought it was going to be your email. Okay, thank you.
It's a beautiful quote, but
I can share it. So in her email, I pulled it over as part of her bio, so maybe it was meant for me to read today. Thank
why
you.
not? Absolutely go ahead.
No man can attain his true station except through his justice. No power can exist except through unity. No welfare and no well-being can be attained except through consultation. Baha'i faith. No Baha'i
Baha'u'llah, who's the prophet.
is the prophet. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then next, I want to talk about Dr. Samir of AUTM's Small Office Committee and the Chair of Membership and Nominations for Rowan University Women's Alliance Network Advisory Board. She is a recipient of the AUTM Foundation Susan Keys Technology Transfer Career Transition Award and has been recognized for Rowan University's honors, including the Employee Recognition Team Work Award, the Rowan Senate Diversity Award for Excellence in Social Activism, and the Rowan Excellence in Diversity Award. Beyond her professional work, Sanaz is deeply committed to human rights advocacy and to amplifying the voices, stories, and lived experiences of the people of Iran. Through her work, service, and volunteer involvement, she is passionate about creating meaningful connections, supporting education and innovation, and helping build inclusive spaces for dialogue, awareness, and collaboration. Here we have our panel for this afternoon's discussion. Please give them a round of applause. Okay, so I'm going to start off by asking Sanaz her first question. Okay, sure. So when people hear about Iran in the news, what do you feel is often missing from the story?
First of all, hi everybody, I'm so glad to be here today. So what I feel is often missing from the story is humanity of Iranian people. When Iran is in the news, the focus is usually on politics, conflict, nuclear issues, sanctions, or human rights violation. Those issues are real and important, but they are not the whole story. What is often missing is everyday life, the people, the culture, the warmth, the humor, the hospitality, the art, the poetry, the food, and the strength of families and communities. Iran is not just a government or a headline. It's a country full of educated, creative, resilient people who continue to hope, love, study, work, and build meaningful lives despite many challenges. As an Iranian woman, I wish people could see the complexity of Iran. There is pain, fear, and injustice, but there is also beauty, dignity, courage, and deep love for life and freedom. I think the story of Iran should include not only what people suffer, but also who they are.
Thank you, Sanaz. And then going here to Shahrazad, something very similar. How would you describe your experiences, your own memories and expectations in terms of how it shaped your identity?
Okay. So also, hello everybody, it's wonderful to be here with all of you. And thank you for the invitation and thank you very much for the kind intro, I appreciate that. Probably similar to what Sanaz shared, I would say, for me, this question that's a bright light for me. It's a bright light for me. And the reason for that is that for me, Iran brings a duality. So on one side, there is love, there is warmth, there is poetry, there is hospitality, there is friendship, everything that I learned growing up there as a person. But on the other side of it, because I'm a member of Baha'i faith, as it was shared before, and Baha'is are under systematic persecution in Iran, and we have been since many, many years. It's been 47 years now since the Islamic Republic took over the government. So on the other side of everything that I just said is also that contradiction that brings me to loss. And the loss meaning some of the rights that, as that we're talking about, basic human rights, that as an Iranian, Baha'i woman, I would just not have access to. Even from, when I was a young child, I was in a situation that I thought, well, why not I? Why can't I do this or that? And we can get to more details as we go along today in this kind of conversation. So that duality resides with me. That on one side, there is a lot of good friends, good food, I should say, in Iran, but also the balance between what I couldn't have, what was denied for me. So So yeah, but overall, I would get back to this point that it doesn't matter all the problems that happen. Yes, they shouldn't. But how we carry ourselves, how do we deal with the problems, how do we see the opportunities to grow because of these problems is what I take throughout my life, and that's how it shaped me. That resilience is the piece that I've come back to.
Thank you for sharing that piece about resiliency, right, even in the face of adversity, which is super important. And so, sticking with the Baha'i faith, can you share your experiences being in the faith, specifically how it intersects with also being a woman, and how it shaped your identity?
Sounds good. Thank you for the question. It's a little bit of a loaded question, but then
Sorry.
no, I love that. I love that. I would like to address the question in two ways. There are two layers. One layer would be being a woman in Iran, and I'm sure we intersect a lot on that. And then the other layer of that would be being a Baha'i. So I'm the woman's side, and you may have heard about this before, but I'm just going to provide a little bit of information on what it's like to be a woman in Iran. Being a woman in Iran is not that easy. Some of the freedom that we enjoy here in the US, some of the rights that we have, women in Iran do not have. So, for example, compulsory hijab that women have heard about it, and that's the veil. You have to cover your hair. If God forbid the piece is out, they will come after you. Oh, what is it that your cover is not right? Or, so these people who are out there in the street, they would really question why you're not dressed properly based on the laws of Islam, the government, maybe the government. So that's one part. The other thing is the unfair laws that exist in Iran, say for marriage, for divorce. So basically, women are treated as second-class citizens, I would say. They're kind of expected under the rules of the Islamic government to be obedient to their male partners, to their husbands, their fathers. They have to follow what they say. If they want to travel outside the country, they cannot just easily do so. They have to have the permission of their husband, for example, to just travel or work. So somebody can be president of a company, but if they are a woman, they have to have that permission from their husband to be able to get on a plane. I know it's a little bit of an interesting angle to think about it, especially from the US standpoint, but this is what we're talking about. Women in Iran, they suffer through this. About a few years ago, you may have heard about this movement that happened, which was Zan Zendegi Azadi, which means women like freedom, that really elevated women just because after 47 years, everybody's kind of sick of not having these basic rights. So have that image in your minds, and then let's move on to being a Baha'i. So being a Baha'i in Iran, first of all, what is Baha'i faith? You may have heard about it, but a quick intro to the Baha'i faith is that it is a new world religion. It's a world-embracing religion. What it does is teaching peace. It's been around about 185 years, initiated in Iran, and the whole purpose of that really is oneness of humanity. So let's promote kindness and unity together, regardless of the faith and background. How can we really join hands and build our community and society to be one, Not a bad teaching, right? But then, from the eyes of the Islamic government, we are considered heretics. They don't like us. Baha'i faith is not exactly like Islam in the eyes of the government. So we're not good people in their eyes. Our teachings are not good. And so they should do whatever they can do to make sure that they suffer. It is the mission. And suffer they do. Or we do with what they do. So if you put all of these things together, being a woman on one side and being a Baha'i on the other really creates some issues for us. One personal example that I'd like to share with you is my mother, who was a pediatrician, got her education in the US, went back to Iran. She had a really high role, high position in a hospital in Iran where she was working, head of the pediatrics unit. Islamic Republic came over, took over, and she lost her job as a result. Not only she lost her job and she couldn't practice in the hospital anymore, she was told that because she's a Baha'i, we're talking about a prominent, highly educated doctor here, because she's a Baha'i, she should not be touching Muslim kids because she's unclean and untouchable. So this is a kind of environment that we're talking about back in Iran. So yes, there are issues in terms of being a woman and being a Baha'i. However, again, what would you take out of this and try to grow from it? Would be the message I'm hoping to convey to others.
I just had a quick question. What is the goal actually of the Iranian government? What is their ultimate goal?
With the Baha'is,
No, not with the Baha'i. In general, what is their goal? What do they want to
actually,
achieve by doing all of that suppression?
it is creating fear and state power through fear. And if you think about it, everything that we hear, the war, and it is really intensifying the pressure that we are putting on, not just Baha'is, like you said, the whole people of Iran is now impacted by this, is just staying in power, ruling, and just creating fear. If anybody wants to add anything.
No, and I think you've done a wonderful job describing what the faith is.
Yeah.
And going back to thinking about your own personal experiences, how do you feel like the faith in the community helped you navigate difficult experiences because of your religion?
Correct. Yes, that's a good question too. Because so far we talked about hardships, right? But then, what is the path? I guess is what you're asking, which is a good question. So if I want to share my shared experiences, if we want to go back to the family and community, I would say that's a really important element. Because again, you can imagine from childhood, if you're told that you're not enough just because of your religious beliefs, or as a child you don't even have a religion, right? So families, religion, and faith kind of dictates the government to say to me that, you just cannot have the opportunities that other people could have. I was in fourth grade, so elementary school, 9 years old, when I was expelled from my elementary school, and then my family had to figure out another way for me to have access to education, which was really driving me a long distance every day, back and forth, just so that I can go to school. And so you can imagine as a child, leaving my friends and my teachers behind, just because my family is Baha'i. Just imagine what that means for a little kid. So what made me be able to cope with this, and when I say me, I'm giving just an example that I'm honored to share with you, but we're talking about a whole community of the Baha'is in Iran who are also facing the same level of persecution. So the community really stands up for them, for ourselves. So we, in the face of adversity, we need to stick to each other and support each other. And my family also did the same. So even though they themselves, both my parents lost their jobs, we're just trying to create that sense of stability and encouragement for the family. It was really useful. It was really heartwarming knowing that I have somebody to go to. First my family, then my friends, a lot of Baha'i friends, and we all face similar issues that would then give each other the support, lift each other up in these situations. One example that I would like to give you is the example of education. Because we're talking about persecution, what Baha'i people are going through. It could range, the persecution could range from imprisonment to execution, lack or loss of employment, confiscation of the property. And so education is another one that is very personal to me that I thought I would share with you. In terms of relation to the community, as you mentioned, Erica. So Baha'is in general cannot go or seek higher education in Iran. So we have all of these state-run universities, but Baha'is cannot attend that. So high school is a dead end. Good luck, right? Yet, if you think about it, looking at the Declaration of Human Rights, education is a basic right for every human being. It brings dignity, it brings integrity, it brings independence, really, and self-confidence that you can navigate the world because of it. Now, if somebody doesn't want to have higher education, it's a choice, but if you want to, you should have that right to pursue higher education. Yet in Iran, Baha'is cannot. So So what the Baha'i community of Iran did, back to the question, how did the community stand up for itself, was the situation that us, the Baha'i youth, couldn't go to the universities. On the other side of the equation were the Baha'i professors who used to have a job in these universities, but after the Islamic Revolution happened, they couldn't. There was this cultural revolution that cleansed the university from all the bad people, including the Baha'is, just because of their beliefs, really just that. So we kind of joined hands. The youth who are in tribal education, the professors who are Baha'is, and they can teach, but they were jobless, honestly. So we created a university called Baha'i Institute for Higher Education, or BIHE, and this just to join hands and educate their own youth. Now think about it, this is a really peaceful solution. When they said you cannot go to the university, we didn't go and say, oh, I hate you, or anger, hatred. No. We said, okay. Right, that is the problem. So the misconception, let me go to my notes. I wrote this somewhere. This is my cheat sheet, because I have to go back, and so not to lose the thought process here. Yeah. So the misconception, I found it, is that, yes, the two things I wanted to mention, one of them is the victimhood. That if you're starting to talk about the persecution that is imposed upon us, by no means it means that we want to say, hey, we were just victimized and this happened to me and oh my God. No. This has happened, not just in Iran, everywhere in the world. Again, I go back to what I mentioned earlier. What I would like to convey to all of you, or whenever I tell this story is, yes, there is pressure, yes, there is persecution, but how would you find a way to grow? How would you find a peaceful way to overcome the issues? In another way. And that is what makes us better. So the victimization by the government, of course, is there, but I don't want to come across as a victim. We're not. We're not victims. We're just people like any other people in the world that we find a way to survive and thrive. The other one of it that I have is visibility, and that is that some people sometimes, the understanding, and this is through my interactions with people, is that, well, if you're a Baha'i, so you're different from the Iranian fabric. And I wanted to mention that no, we're not. We are still Iranians. We love the country, we love the people. It just so happens that for whatever reason, the government wants to persecute. We're still the same people. We're one people. So that visibility of us as part of the broader Iranian population is also a misconception that sometimes I've come across.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about educational opportunities as they exist for Iranians who are in America. Specifically, Dr. Shahi and I, we actually were in the same PhD program. And so I remember her studies were centered around the experiences, I believe, of Iranian students and their experiences here in America. So I think this next question is a really good question for Dr. Shahi. And are you ready? Okay, so can you describe your experience as a woman in Iran and how it compares with your experiences as a woman in the United States?
Sure. As a woman in Iran, my experience was shaped by both strength and limitation. Iranian women are incredibly educated, capable, resilient, and full of ambitions, but at the same time, they often have to navigate social, legal, and cultural restrictions that affect their daily lives. From how they dress, to how they are expected to behave, to how freely they can express themselves. Compulsory dress rules and broader gender-based discrimination continue to affect women's public life in Iran. In Iran, being a woman often means learning how to be strong quickly. You learn to be careful, to think before you speak, and to constantly be aware of the boundaries around you. But at the same time, I saw so much courage in Iranian women. They continue to pursue education, careers, family, arts, activism, and independence despite many obstacles. My experience as a woman in the United States has been different because I feel I have more personal freedom and more space to make choice for myself. How I dress, how I speak, what I study, and how I build my future. But it does not mean everything is easy. As an immigrant woman, I still face challenges, including stereotypes, cultural adjustment, and sometimes feeling that I have to prove myself more. For me, the difference is not that one experience is simple and the other is difficult. Both shaped me. Iran gave me resilience, identity, and a deep appreciation for women's strengths. The United States gave me more freedom to use my voice and imagine different possibilities for myself.
Thank you.
Sure.
I lost in the response. All right, next question. What challenges do international students face that people may not immediately see?
Yeah, so I came to the United States in 2015 as an international student. So the challenges I faced was different with other international students from different countries. So that's why I think one challenge people may not immediately see is that international students are often treated as one group. But students from different countries and backgrounds experience very different realities. Their challenges are shaped by their country of origin, immigration status, visa restrictions, political relationship between their home country and the United States, financial system, language, race, religion, and even how others perceive them. So for example, Iranian international student here, they cannot easily ask their family for financial support because there is no like bank system or something that they can transfer money here because of all the sanctions. They cannot go back to their home country, like myself. I came in 2015 and it's been 11 years I haven't seen my parents because I can go back, but I cannot go back to this country. So I'm gonna lose, everything. Those challenges, that's with travel ban, all those things. It's, affect my everyday life. For Iranian international students, these challenges is especially complex. It is not only about adjusting to a new university or learning new academic culture. Many Iranian students also deal with visa uncertainty, single entry visas, long administration processing, difficulty traveling home, and fear that if they leave the US, they may not be able to return easily. That creates a constant emotional burden. There are also financial challenges connected to sanctions. Many Iranian students cannot easily receive money from family, use normal banking system, or access services that other students may take for granted. On top of that, they may carry stress about what is happening back home, worry about family, and feel pressure to be careful about why they say publicly or on social media. So what people see may not is that international students are not only studying, they are constantly navigating immigration system, financial barriers, cultural adjustment, identity, loneliness, family separation, and sometimes political fear. My thesis showed me that international student experience are deeply shaped by where they come from, and Iranian students' experience are shaped by a unique combination of sanctions, visa restriction, political tension, and emotional resilience. So as you mentioned about the movement Zan Zendegi Azadi, the Women Life Freedom Movement. I was like, I have to be voice of my people. I have to do something. So I started to post something on social media, be voice of my people, but I got called from the regime that, okay, what are you doing? You're not a US citizen. Your family lives in Iran. We know your address. We know your family address. So watch out. Be careful. Those are the experience that I couldn't share with anyone else as well. I was like, what should I do? And believe me, I always consider that I'm a strong woman. I'm not afraid of anything, but that night, I was so afraid, and I couldn't sleep all the night. But another day, I was like, what should I do? Should I stop doing the things that I'm doing? But I think myself that no, people of Iran, they are in the middle of the street, they unarmed in front of people, they got shot. And I'm here. And I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not, the simple things that I'm gonna do it. So I was like, no, definitely not. I'm gonna, be their voice more than before.
Thank you, Shannon. In the middle of trying to save the world and your studies, can you think about how has studying or living in the United States changed the way you think about identity, belonging, or home?
Studying and living in the United States changed the way I think about identity, belonging, and home in a very deep way. Before coming to the US, I may have thought of identity as something more fixed, connected to where I was born, my language, my culture, and my family. But after living here, I realized that identity becomes more complex. When you are an international student or immigrant, you are still connected to your home country, but at the same time, you are also being shaped by the new society, new experiences, and new ways to seeing yourself. For Iranian students, this can be more complicated because our identity is often connected to politics. In a way, we do not choose. Sometimes people hear Iran and immediately think about the government, I have to say the regime, conflict, or headlines, rather than seeing us as an individual with our own stories, dreams, and values. So part of my experience has been learning how to explain who am I behind the stereotypes. Living in the United States also changed my understanding of belonging. Belonging is not always automatic. Sometimes you feel connected and sometimes you feel in between, not fully here and no longer fully the same person you were back home. But over time, I learned that belonging can be something we build through relationships, community, purpose, and using our voice. Home, for me, is no longer only one physical place. Iran will always be home because it shaped who am I, but the US also has become part of my story. I think home can be the place that you have made, but also the place where you continue to grow. Was it checking my name?
No, that was
All right.
Sure. So, with the previous question, how were you contacted by when you say government, the Iranian regime government?
Yeah, they called me on my cell phone.
Oh my
And
God.
I saw that what's called, caller ID, and I was like, who's calling me? Maybe my family or those things. But I answered the phone, was like really, oh my gosh, I was afraid with the way that it was like, I said, no, I was speaking, I was like, yes, I know something is happening. So yeah, that was the thing.
And what
Yeah, they
language?
called me,
What language did they speak?
Farsi,
Yeah.
in my own language, yeah. And they told me that, I was like, how you have my contact information? So it's easy to find it through, internet, because university is like public and my contact information is public as well. But they're like, we got your number from someone in your university that's saying that you're doing something wrong against the regime. I was like, okay. Because it's odd. So many people that are here, how do they know that I'm doing something? Definitely someone says something. Yes, you're sharing on social media and those kind of things. But the people that see my social media is not, so all the people. So definitely someone says something about me. They love me.
Someone here shared with you.
Okay, so I guess to close out kind of this question or conversation about international students, just some numbers to put along with the context of the conversation. In the last, I guess, academic year, the United States actually hosted 1.18 million international students in the United States who come here to go to these schools that are very prestigious, and it's important that we continue to have conversations so that we can figure out how to continue to have students who bring academic scholarship and value to the United States. Is super important. So thank you for sharing that. So my last question, I guess, in that space is, what do you think we could do, especially in terms of a way to help create understanding and empathy around complex stories like Iran? I guess, in any setting, but specifically when students are in school.
So one thing is just distinguish between international students from Iran or other countries that may, face sanctions or a travel ban with other international students. Because the students from France or Canada, they can go back to their country, come back here and study, see their family, but I don't have, the opportunity to see my family. If I'm struggling with financial kind of things, no one can transfer me money. Sometimes, because of the war or something happened and internet is shut down in my country, I cannot have access to them, talk to them. So I want to talk to my parents, my family, to hear what is happening, are they safe or not. But those are the things that I carry with myself every day at work or school. Luckily, I graduated, but that was a really tough moment because I was seeing other students that they're talking about, it's like Thanksgiving, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do is spending time at the library to study. Because, yes, I have many, many lovely friends, which I love them, they're awesome. I really appreciate them because I have them in my life. But my family, they're not here. And, I was missing something. I want to, they're distinguished between international students and study more about the challenge we face with other international students. Because all the studies, when you look through internet, it's all about international student challenges in one group. Language barrier, cultural shock, adjusting, this and that. No, there is more of those kind of things. What are you not talking about my mental health? Why you are not talking about the financial barriers which I'm facing? Why you are not talking about the visa restriction, visa process that I went through to be here? And now, it was before the long weekend, I heard that USCIS, they said that all the people, international students or, I don't know, all the immigrants that they are here and waiting for their green card, they have to go back to their country and wait. At that point, I was like, okay, I have to leave everything here. I have 11 kind of years experience in this country. I tried to build my life from literally zero. When I came here at the age of 35 years old, I had everything back home. I was graduated with my MBA. I was a manager for an international company. I consider myself as a successful woman. I had everything, home, family, car, everything that you think that it's, okay, I'm successful. But I came here, I started from literally zero. Being a student, English is my second language. I thought that I know English. I came here, I was like, "Oh, I cannot understand. I was barely understand the things. My family couldn't transfer me money. I was struggling with those kind of things. So that's all the, challenges I went through, and I really want to, education system consider that there's difference between international students, and we have to help them, we have to support them, we have to create the welcoming environment for them. I'm going through classroom or something, people they ask me, oh, where are you from? You have an accent. I'm from Iran. Oh, okay. Okay. I know what does it mean. So they don't want to share something with me. They don't want to be interactive. Not all of the time, but sometimes. I'm human. I'm still a human. And please, be aware of that. People of Iran are different from the regime. We are suffering. And we are here to experience something different. And if it's going to be the same experience, okay, so I'm sorry for myself. Yeah.
By the way, Dr. Shari,
Sure.
yesterday evening, I was at a ceremony award for Iranian students. A little meager contribution that this group of cultural society students do award PhD, master, and bachelor, and even high student, which we have here one of the award winners, of course, that we're very proud of.
Congratulations.
Your son. Yes.
So my son is
He won the prize.
Thank you.
So, I've heard that from this group of people that actually it's lifted, this,
Yes, the promise. Yeah.
the ban is lifted now. They were really happy
Yeah.
because many of them are PhD students that the field of research actually are in developing business and starting business, and they were so happy that they could stay finally in the United States and move on. with
Thank
their
you for
life.
sharing that. Yeah, that was something that
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for the question. And so we're going to move into the final set of questions, really focusing on how experiences can intersect and shape identity and belonging in the community. And so both of you can share a response about the next question, but going back to your experiences in terms of how they shape your understanding of courage, resilience, and identity, how do you feel that those experiences, and you talked about it, but how really shaped your understanding of being an Iranian in the United States?
I have my notes. Do you want me to
Please,
start?
you can start.
Yeah.
Probably we can have some sharing.
So yeah, I was
experiences.
thinking with myself to, talking, and I was like, oh, in this kind of situation, because of, stress and those kind of things, I cannot even think about, the question in Farsi in my own language. So let's have my notes. So that's why I have my notes in here. My experience have deeply shaped the way I understand courage, resilience, and identity. For me, courage is not always loud or visible. Sometimes courage is simply continuing even when you are carrying fear, uncertainty, or pain. As an Iranian woman and as an international student, I learned that courage can mean leaving home to pursue education, building a life in new country, speaking in a second language, navigating immigration and visa uncertainty, and still showing up every day. The Women Life Freedom Movement also changed my understanding of courage. It shows me that courage can be collective. It can be women and girls standing up for identity, freedom, and the right to exist fully. It can be people refusing to be silenced even when silence feels safer. That movement reminded that World reminded that the world that Iranian women are not only victims of oppression, they are leaders of change. So recently we had the event of January 18 and 19. It reminds me again that resilience is not abstract. Around that time, Iran was going through a very painful and intense moment. After days of protests, the government responded with a severe crackdown and many people were arrested, injured, or killed. Internet restriction made it harder for people inside Iran to communicate with outside the world, which created even more fear and isolation. Even when people were pushed off the street, their desire for freedom did not disappear. Some continued to resist in quieter ways, such as chanting from their home, supporting one another, and refusing to let fear erase their hope. For me, this connected deeply to the spirit of the Women Life Freedom movement. It showed that courage is not only about visible protest. Sometimes courage is surviving, remembering, speaking when possible, and continuing to believe in dignity, justice, and freedom, even when the cost is very high. These experiences have also made my identity more layered. I am Iranian, a woman, an immigrant, a professional who has worked hard to build a career and contribute meaningfully in my field, and someone shaped by both pain and possibility. My identity carries memories of home, but also the responsibility to speak about the people behind the headlines. Overall, my experience taught me that courage is continuing despite fear, resilience. Fear, resilience is holding onto hope despite hardship, and identity is honoring where you come from, while still allowing yourself to grow, speak, and become more.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I think you touched upon a lot of things that I also wanted to share. Beautifully said. And I think as I was listening to you, Sanaz, you just gave a very good example about courage. And that is when you mentioned that you were trying to be the voice for the voiceless. And yet you get a call from somebody, probably associated with the government, really threatening you that if you continue doing that, your family may be in danger. And yes, it is natural and normal to be scared, like you just very wonderfully shared with us. I would be the same. But then you took the time to think about, what is the impact if I don't do this versus my own comfort, right? And then so she decided to step up and be the voice for the voices. That's a very good example of courage, honestly. And I applaud you for that. And I think everything that you said really aligns very well with that. Same with me, really, and I would say the experiences we all go through, everybody here has a story, right? Everybody has been through hardship, has been through successes, crisis, right? So, and it makes us who we are today. And I think when it comes to what I had to go through, and me as an example in terms of the community, those shared experiences back home and also here, having the opportunity to be exposed to now this country and the opportunities that it has provided for me to grow, it puts me easily in the curiosity mode. When something happens, I would like to be curious, I would like to contribute, and I would like to problem solve, because that's what we do when we become more resilient. It's like, okay, there's a problem. How would you approach it? Don't be turned off by it. Don't turn away. There's always a solution. It may not be the best solution, but it could be a solution you can find for the moment that could make it better for me, for the country, for the community, and the people around us. Always I go back to that connection. We talked about the community. I mentioned about how my community back in Iran shaped me. Not really just the Baha'i community, because yes, they did, but we had a lot of good friends of the Baha'i faith who were not Baha'is, right? But they locked themselves into, how can I help you? How can I, this is not fair, right? So that connectivity, that humanity that you also mentioned, I think it is ultimately that core of everything. Goes back to courage, goes back to everything we were just talking about, trying to stay connected with each other, without each other's stories. I may be here or Sana's talking about ours, we would love to hear yours, another day, because that is how we get connected. And together we can solve a lot of problems, right? So how does it shape us is togetherness. And then beyond one person, we can always tackle a lot of difficult issues.
Thank you. So this is really good.
Oh,
Shahrazad.
I mean,
Yeah, it's a good question. Have you ever felt, I guess, pressure or obligated to explain or represent Iran to others, and how do you handle that when you're in that position?
Yes. Have I felt pressure? Yes. And I think we talked a little bit about that, a lot about that. Let me start by a personal example, because I think it brings some light into this. So I was a PhD student at Temple University. I studied pharmaceutical sciences. As PhD students, we would prepare posters, research papers, and we would go to conferences and we would present them. The year is 2003, not too far from 2001, when 9/11 happened. Brought a lot of attention to Middle East. Yeah. So I am in this conference, and it's called American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, and I'm presenting in the United States. And the people who are attending are all highly educated people, either professors at the universities or they are working in industry, PhDs, masters, all these, who are curious about the recent research that's happening. So there is this big hallway of all of the posters that us, the students, are putting up, and we're describing about what we have done. So this gentleman approaches me and says, well, tell me about your work, and I start talking about what I have done, and my expertise is into formulation of tablets and capsules, like the pills that we're taking. So I was just saying about the recent research I have done. Then he looks at me and says, where is your accent from? I said, well, I'm originally from Iran. He looks at me, he smiles and he says, you must be a terrorist then. And he laughs and he goes. And I'm standing there, PhD student, totally tuned into my science. I was like, what just happened? This was not funny at all, right? So it took a while for me to process this, right? But then again, the environment at that time, right? So do I feel pressure? Yes, just because, and I think we mentioned this earlier in the conversation too, as soon as you say Iran, we are automatically associated with the government. Oh my gosh, Iran, we're at war with them, right? Yes, we are, but humanity matters. We are, and I always remind people, nobody wants to leave their homeland and be somewhere else. Sanaz mentioned, we don't know the language, we don't know the culture. The older we are and we come to this country, the harder it is to adjust. Nobody wants to do that, right? I would love to be in Iran. I know everybody. Know me, it's just easier. So I remind people that the reason I'm here is because I'm actually not associated with the government. I was persecuted against. I was not happy. I had to leave. So just to bring more context into this. So I would say it is important, again, going back to that core of humanity, to separate the person in front of us from the government, from what they do. What they do is wrong. I mean, look at what's going on now. We're constantly in the news, Iran is. They are horrible against their own people. We're not talking about Baha'is and Jews here. We're talking about the whole people of Iran that the government has turned against. So it is important, to your point, that the pressure comes from just making sure that my audience understands that people of Iran are separate from the government.
Thank you for that. And to your point, I think to get to better understanding, we have to listen to people's stories.
Absolutely.
Stories are super important, and having the openness, right, to hear and to think beyond the conversation, right? that actually leads into the next question, which is for you.
Yeah.
How can people listen to stories about Iran with more empathy and less judgment? Because I think you're
Yeah.
very good, we're good at judging, right? But
Yeah, I mean, yes, we all are.
Yes.
You're right, exactly. And I think that's a good question because it ties well with what I was describing a little bit earlier, is that we all have, myself, we all have conceptions and thought processes and follow the news, and there are certain things that immediately come to our mind. Trying to separate that, and when we look at the person in front of us, just, I'm saying this not for you, or for all of us, really just enter the conversation with a blank slate. Let me see what this person has to say. What is their story? What is their experience? What are the experiences that they've been? What kind of life do they live? Rather than saying, oh, I heard something in the news, let's plug it in and associate it with them. No, no. So yes, I would say it's important to let the person hear the stories, and maybe the questions we all can ask any person that we come across is, how did this experience shape you? How did you feel when you were persecuted against? Or what was it like living there? These kind of questions to probe further so that we can understand their perspective. And again, I want to clarify, you're hearing my story, Sanaz's story. This is not the stories of Iran. These are two distinct examples of what each of us went through. But there's so many other stories. Like I said, you all have stories too, right? So I'm sure one single story here in the room doesn't represent the United States of America, right? It's just one story among many others. So we're trying to share what we have endured and what we went through, just as a starting point. So other stories that you may come across as you go on.
Thank you. All right, Sanaz. What role do women play in representing culture, building community, and creating change?
Thank you. Women play a very powerful role in preserving culture, building community, and creating change. In many cultures, including Iranian culture, women are often the one who carries stories, language, traditions, food, values, and memories across generations. They keep culture alive, not only through formal way, but through everyday acts, teaching children, gathering families, sharing history, celebrating traditions, and creating a sense of belonging. Women also build community in very meaningful ways. They often create a space of support, care, connection, and resilience, especially during difficult times. For immigrants and international students, this becomes even more important because community can help people feel less alone when they are far from home. At the same time, women are not only perceiving the past, they are also creating change. The Women Life Freedom Movement showed the world the courage of Iranian women and girls. It showed that women are not only asking for their own rights, but also speaking for dignity, freedom, and better future for the whole society. Their courage inspires many people inside and outside Iran and reminds us that women's voice can become a powerful force for justice and social change. For me, women are central to both memory and movement. They protect where we come from, support who we are now, and help shape what our communities can become.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. And then the closing question. Beyond the headlines, what is one image, memory, or truth about Iran that you want people to carry with them? Then we'll start. Nazi, you want to go first?
Yes, I think.
Please.
You
Please. That just was.
Yeah. Beyond the headlines, one truth about Iran that I want people to carry with them is that Iran is full of life, beauty, courage, and humanity. When people hear about Iran, they often think about politics, conflict, sanctions, or restrictions. Those realities exist, which I said before, but they are not the full picture. I want people to imagine families gathering around the table, women laughing together, students dreaming about their future, poetry being recited, music, food, hospitality, and people who continue to love life even under very difficult circumstances. I also want people to remind the bravery of Iranian women and Iranian people. The Women Life Freedom Movement showed the world that Iranian women are incredibly gorgeous. They have stood up not only for themselves, but for dignity, freedom, justice, and a better future for whole society. Iranian people are not passive. They are creative, educated, resilient, and more importantly, brave. At the same time, I want people to understand that people of Iran are not same as the regime, as Shahzad mentioned that. In many ways, they are being held hostage by a system that does not represent their full humanity, their dreams, or their desire for freedom. The Iranian people should not be reduced to the action of the government. They deserve to be seen as human beings with hope, talent, pain, love, and courage. For me, Iran is not a place of struggle. It's a place of deep culture, memory, resilience, and warmth. If there is one image I want you to carry, it's that image of Iranian people, especially women, continue to create beauty, community, and hope, even when the world often only sees outcomes.
Very well said. Well said, yeah. I second that for sure. When I think about Iran for me, again, I may be biased, right? But my roots are there. Like I always tell my son is here today, and I always remind him, I may be here, but my roots are there. And regardless of all the hardship that we're talking about, the place that we were raised in, that we grew up in, is a place that we belong to, ultimately. Right? It's just there's this deep connection to the soil of that place, to the memories that we all have. And what I want to bring awareness to all of you is that warmth, hospitality that Iranian people have, deep culture, as Sanaz mentioned, deep history, beautiful architecture. And so all of that, I feel, are not mentioned much these days, just because, yes, we're talking about the war and politics and how awful the government is. We all agree on that aspect of it, but the country itself is beautiful. And I really hope when the situation is better, all of us can go and visit that country. We would enjoy that. And I can assure you, people will come and surround you, and they will be like, how can I help you? How can I make your trip better? That's who the Iranian people are. Just really warm inside and community people. So yeah, that's the image that I would like for all of us to do.
Well, I want to say this concludes our conversation, but I want to say thank you to all of you who have joined us this afternoon to hear about the wonderful tradition and the rich tapestry and the roots that you all bring to ROTS and ROUTES that you bring to America, really. So thank you so much again for sharing your experiences, your stories, and thank you to the audience members with your wonderful questions. We do have about 10 minutes for questions, I think. So we can take questions if you have something that you want to learn more about or hear about. Yes.
During your talk, thank you very much for speaking in the panel. I was curious about something. The talk me centered on education and having educational rights within within Iran. And the problems of America and the acceptance of the Iranian student, Iranian person, the perception of that person. I was curious on the citizenship end, because you're both citizens of Iran. You're both sisters of Iran. And how are you treated in your medical system with yourself, your children, your families, and what are their rights, medically, socially, legally? What are those rights? Within Iran, not within the United States.
So you're talking about people who are in Iran?
Yeah, you, before you came here,
Or before we
and
came
your
here?
reason for coming here. Not just because it was an educational opportunity, because you had some within your faith, my faith and the institute that was created. So I don't know how far that education would go.
Yes.
But I'm not looking at you as only an educational person. I'm looking at the whole person and how does the culture treat each other. I mean, you're both citizens of the same country. And you both have males and females and sons and daughters and cousins.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense, absolutely. I can go first, just because you pick on education, which is actually very important. Let me start with education, and then I can try to tackle the other ones that you mentioned. So on the education side, as a Baha'i, so just going back to the Baha'i faith and how we are deprived of education, higher education. What the Baha'i community created is to educate the youth. There was no degree at the end, nothing. It was just for the purpose of studying, reading, being aware of the science of, social studies or anything that was relevant to the day, so that you're not sitting at home doing nothing. No degrees, really. So in that sense, that was just within the Baha'i community. So when I came here, I just wanted to make that distinction. My personal reason for coming here was to continue my education. So when I came here and I presented all of my documentation from Baha'i Institute of Higher Education here, when I applied to 7, 8 universities, majority of the people said, what is this university you're coming from? It's not in the list of accredited universities, because there's a list they compare against, and if your degree is valid, they would then let you go to graduate school. So I had a lot of convincing to do. I'm like, of course it's not there, but let me tell you why, right? Some of the graduate studies departments, they were like, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. Some of them were open, and one of them was Stanford University, because they actually gave me an interview. They were curious. They were talking about curiosity before. So I sat down with the director of graduate studies. I explained the situation and how I got educated. So he gave me a chance. He said, okay, I will admit you to the PhD program, because when I talk to you, it appears that you have learned what is needed to be in the PhD program. So I started the program not knowing the language very well, English. Now I have these big textbooks that I have to learn. Right? So, quite challenging. But so, it was just the beginning, like, it was kind of like trailblazing, trying to establish what the IHE is to the world, to the Western countries. And when I say I did that, it's not just me. There are many people who left Iran, went to Western countries or other countries trying to do the same. So now, if you go to Stanford or to many universities and say I graduated from the IHE, you know what you're talking about. So my purpose personally was to continue my education. It was just a dream for me to be able to be educated. Back to the rest of the questions that you had. So Baha'is specifically were not legally protected. So anything happens to us, what? You know, I went to get my passport to be able to leave Iran, and it took me 5 years to get a passport. So when I was talking to this guy, every time I'm appearing, he said, oh, you again. I'm like, yeah. So put a stamp on my documentation, failed, not granted. Ultimately, one-on-one, I said to this guy, you don't like us Baha'is, right? Of course. Let me know. I'm leaving. So let me go. He looked me into my eyes with the hatred that I could see, and he told me, "You want to leave. I'm not gonna allow that. Yeah, because you want to go. You don't like me. I'm leaving, right? But no." And then he said to me, "As a Baha'i, you should not have the right to believe, let alone get a passport." So this is the environment we're talking about. And I'm like, thank you, and I just left the office and started applied constantly. Until after 5 years, there is like a more moderate president, and I was able to get a passport to leave. So these are the situations. Medically speaking, I take the example of my mother, because she was a doctor herself. A lot of people, because of her, a lot of community members who lost members who were Baha'is, and fathers and families were executed or in prison. So my mother would do a lot of pro bono work for those families as a physician, even if she didn't have any privilege at the hospitals in Iran. But medically, I would say we were fine. It was okay. If anything happened to us, we could go to the hospital. The hospital or the doctor's offices would not ask what the religion is. Schools would, but they wouldn't. So actually, you made me think that's a very good point, because medically, we were fine. It's just that the doctors who were Baha'is could not really be working in the hospitals. But as patients going into the hospital, they wouldn't ask what your religion is, so we could be served in that sense. If you would like to add anything else. Or I'm not
Especially from,
the
the
answer.
perspective of being Baha'i and you cannot go to, hospital. If you want to go, you cannot, freely go to any hospital in Iran.
As a patient, we could. As a doctor, we couldn't. We couldn't work as a doctor. The patients, because when you go there as a patient, they don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know that your foot is broken, but what is your religion?" They don't do that, thank God. Maybe that's the only place they don't. But that part was, I thought it was okay. Did I ask you a question?
Yes, yes, I did. Thank you.
And if I may interfere in this, a lot of people, I mean, at least my age, my husband and his colleagues, he's a professor at the university, at Berkeley University, they all came because of some idea of excellence at their time. The United States always offered this idea of, wow, we can reach higher, and then we can come back eventually to serve. Yes, yes, you're laughing, I know. But still, this is valid for many immigrants or students around the world that they are looking to come to this country because of the quality of the higher education. I didn't come for this reason, by the way, I fell in love, so.
I have an anecdote to share to answer your question. So we were visiting family friends in Australia, and one of their friends.
Can you speak up a bit?
Oh,
Sorry.
sure.
Sorry.
We were visiting family friends in Australia, and they had a friend. The woman was about my age, a little bit older. And she was Iranian, born in Iran. Her husband had a mixed background, like Iraqi, Kurdish. She was there visiting her family, and she was pregnant. Her husband had to leave the country temporarily, just like for a short period. She ended up having her baby in the hospital. She was not allowed to leave the hospital because her husband was not there. So, because they didn't have proof that she could take this baby as her own because the husband wasn't present to give that permission. So medically, there are a lot of barriers as well, especially for women. And I mean, that's just one of them. She could have stayed in Iran, but she, after that experience, decided, I'm not staying in this country. And so she and her husband.
Yeah, I just like to add also something. Many of us are part of Iran and have Iran countrymen. We actually left because we knew we don't have the opportunity, not just about education, just about freedom. So when the revolution happened, the Islamic Revolution 1979, everything changed in Iran. Before women were free, they could dress however they want. Women could be doctors, judges. They still can be doctors, but no more judges. So things changed. So like for my family, my parents, my father said, you know what, the country is going to go back 200 years. This is not a place for us to stay. Because he knew as a young girl, my brother, he wouldn't have the opportunity. So many Iranians, some left for education, but I think most of the Iranians that left, that could have left because of safety, security, future. So now, in Iran, there are many Iranians are educated. There's a lot of educated, I think the number of women in university is higher than that. But the problem is once they are done with university, there's nothing. Many become Uber drivers, taxi drivers because they have no job. Many young men, women, they can't even get married because they don't have the money to get their own home. So they still are living with their parents in their 30s and 40s. So the country really went backward. And so whoever could leave in 1979 after, they started leaving. So I think, just wanted to add
Do
that.
all of them have to work at a job?
So all of them, even as an American, it doesn't matter. You're a woman, you have to wear the hijab.
Yeah,
They announced it in the airplane as soon as they enter the Iranian space.
Yes.
They say, we are in Islamic Republic of Iran, ladies, please respect the Islamic hijab.
And flying back, just a funny, I wanted to, all that funny story, sorry. When you fly back from Iran, you get in the airport, you have your hijab, you get in the airplane, you have your hijab. As soon as you leave Iran, the bathrooms are full, and you can't even get in the bathroom for half an hour, and then all these women come up with makeup, and you can recognize who is who. It's like, whoa. It's very, very interesting. So people in Iran, I want you to understand, have two lives. There is a life at home, and there is a life outside. At home, there is everything. You have internet. You see what is going on. That's why lots of young people, they want to come here. They see the opportunities. They see the freedom. You have the music. You see everything. But when you come out, you have to be a different person. You have to wear your hijab. You have to, be careful what you say. So it's very, very hard. This double life that you're living in Iran. And it's not just in Iran, Afghanistan. Women in Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan is a whole different level. I mean, in Iran, at least the woman can be, sorry I'm talking so long, but one more thing, because I have a lady here from Afghanistan, so I wanted to specifically mention that. And if you want to add something, we would love to hear you. So in Iran, at least a woman can be a doctor, a woman goes to college, but in Afghanistan, they have no rights. And we have a wonderful lady here that, has come here. I don't know, if you want to say something, we'd love to hear you, because I feel like in Iran, you hear it more. Afghanistan, everyone is so silent that you don't hear much. So we would love to hear you if you have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and hear all the stories you've shared. Of course, we share common things like women cannot go to, in Afghanistan, women cannot go to school, go to universities. There's no rights. Even you cannot go outside. So I just want to say that still, I'm so lucky I'm here being this community supporting women, especially women, and I'm so proud that you're here today being the voice of the women, and I'm lucky girl that I'm here, but still we're here, but mentally our body, our everything is there. We're still every day thinking about people who are still living in there, and I'm so happy you're still here and supporting all the women around the world who they don't have their rights. And I could just say it is way worse in Afghanistan, and you don't even want to live in there. So yeah.
How were you able to leave?
Well, I left with my uncle from the border, and then somehow I caught by the Taliban, and they figured that I'm leaving. And then I was also scout, and that I was in their blacklist, of course.
Yeah.
And then I somehow ran away from Afghanistan. Yeah.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
How long ago? Can you just, because I think there was more interest, sorry.
Yeah.
How long ago did you come?
I came here last year, 2025, March 2025. Yeah. Recently.
There is an organization, I think, that actually works with the girls in Afghanistan. There is an organization that, they have online teachings for the girls because they cannot go to school, and another organization that helps them come. And I know from other people that I've met and heard about, when a woman wants to leave Afghanistan, they have to be accompanied by a man, by an uncle, by a brother, and so yeah.
Yeah, if you leave your house, you have to have a male person. It should be either your husband, your father, or your brother, no one else. And then you have documentation to prove that this guy is your father or your husband, something. And then when I left the border of Pakistan, my uncle was with me, and they were talking, no, how you can prove this documentation doesn't prove that he's your uncle. He might be your boyfriend. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's just crazy.
Oh, no,
She's just touched.
You are
by
way
your
more
experience.
important than I am to talk. I am very sorry to be so late. I unfortunately had a medical issue that I could not come earlier, so I appreciate everyone being here. So if I ask a question that has already been asked, I apologize. I'm Holly, and I work for an organization called Stand With Us that really supports all that you are doing. It's just unbelievable, but there's all these questions about what's going on with, if you show your hair, you're murdered. The Islamic Republic says, well, it's against the law, so this is a punishment, but it's murder, and people need to hear about these things, so we need to put it out. So thank you for being here and saying it, and, we try to, personally, I try to, I'm gonna say it, it's scary, but we have to say it, but, and then people say, oh, is this really true? So we come to these things because it is true, but we have to hear it and learn it, and how do we say it? So hearing these stories, I can't imagine I have to get permission to walk out the door, or, do I have to put on a jacket? And, I want to be respectful too, so I'm, what do I wear, what do I do, because I would never want, but also learning and asking questions, so it's really important. There was a video of a woman singing on the streets in Iran, and you're not allowed to sing. No, a woman, I'm sorry, is not allowed to sing on the streets of Iran. And she was killed, but she wasn't killed, she was murdered. And people go, oh, that can't be true. Is it? Yes. So that needs to be told. It is.
It is true. It's just so hard to believe. It is true in the 21st century. This is why people are double checking.
Really? Right.
Just for saying.
And this is where propaganda, people don't want to believe it. How can these horrors happen? So it's easier to say, no, it can't. It couldn't have happened. But it did.
On the note of propaganda, I want to clarify this. You may see pictures of individuals, women on the street without the hijab. You may see that. You may see, again, like a video of a woman singing. The point is that you may see that, but whoever is doing that is assuming a lot of risk by doing that, right? Like it is very likely that they may come across some sort of law enforcement figure, or just they could get arrested, they could get killed, right? Like even for that to be a possibility is the risk that all of these women live with. So, because again, from like a propaganda standpoint, there are videos or photos circulating of like, oh, look, this woman doesn't have the hijab on. It seems like they're walking down the street and it's okay. Yes, but it's the risk that
That's their ability.
I have to add something, sorry, it's also the regime's propaganda.
Yeah.
So especially after, what happened in January, February, most of you know about over 35,000 people got killed in 2 days. And the government wanted to show the rest of the world, we are not, who our people are talking about, we are actually peace-loving, So they actually they do demonstrations pro-regime, and in the demonstration you do see people now lately, a lot of women without wearing the hijab. And because to be honest, not everyone is against the government. There is, but they say 10% is pro-government, 90% is, it's like under Hitler. And the Nazis, we had the same. There were some people that were making money, that had the power, they were behind Hitler, and the rest. So it's the same thing in the regime in Iran. So when you see this, many of them are propaganda, and they actually want the videos to come out
Of course.
so that the
And
Western,
they
like we
use
say, oh, see, she's not wearing a hijab, Iran is
And
free.
she's okay.
So,
And this is the point of this, and we have to remember, it's the smallest group that are for the worst people. And so the answer is, and she was murdered, so yes, it is true. And they try to use it against, and it's so important to speak out, so it's unbelievable. And the horrors are hard to believe, but we have to show it, and we have to speak out.
How do you see this continuing with the regime? Is there any, do you feel like that you're much more in touch with people from Iran, which of course we're not, we're only seeing the headlines. But how do you feel like this is continuing, or what do you think is going
We're
to
hoping
happen?
that it wouldn't continue much further.
Yeah.
What the
Yes.
government is
Hope is
doing.
one. Yeah.
It is the hope, honestly. Every day, it's a bright day. We're hoping that this will stop, because how much can people get this oppression and people be exposed to it? I don't know what's going to happen. It sounds like they are not ready to, they're not ready to let go of the power, so they'll do whatever they can. And first there is war, which has really made the situation worse also for people of Iran in terms of, economically and living conditions. So at some point it has to snap, maybe internally, it has to. But yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Okay, I think we have maybe time for one more question.
I have a question. So I want to hear you. Sorry, I want to hear your perspective on the current generation of Iranian youth, maybe like kids who are in high school or kids who just started college. How do you compare that to the generation when you were leaving the country? Because a lot of the things and a lot of the things that the regime does as the propaganda, it says, yeah, obviously like any other normal government, we have an opposition. You see Iranians in diaspora being very passionately against us, but that doesn't represent all the people in Iran. People inside the country, they're just living their lives, they're happy. Sometimes they don't like one president, sometimes they like another president better. That wasn't my lived experience at all. I would not be alive if I didn't leave the country. That was one, I mean, I came here to do my PhD, but I knew that if I stayed in the country because of the things that would happen in the future, I would, at best, I would be in prison. That would be the best case scenario for me. And now, so I don't want to like share my experience, my personal experience, but I want to hear from you. When you compare the Iranian youth especially, right now, to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when you were living the country, how do you compare that? How does that look like?
They're brave. They talk right now. At the time that I was in Iran, I was afraid to talk because I knew what's going to happen. They killed my uncle because of his belief. So we were like quiet. Our generation, I think they force us to be quiet and be like, okay, this is what this is. You don't have right, this and that. And we were like in a point to be like invisible kind of things. But people right now, I mean, the new generation, they're so brave. They talk about their rights. They're like, asking for the things. Maybe because of, the internet or something, that they knew what is happening. At that point, we were like kind of blind. But now they know and they're like asking for it. And they're brave. They killed many young people, 40,000 people in 2 days, just because they're asking for their rights.
Also maybe because of this educated, highly educated generation of mothers that they are coming up and their children now.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely. That was a wonderful point.
Yes. And I agree with everything that was said. When I look at the news, sometimes I think when I was in Iran, same thing. It was beginning of revolution at a time. We were in kind of a disbelief that this is actually happening, comparing it to the when the Shah, the king of Iran, was in power. And then slowly, and sometimes quickly, things were changing. And I remember when I was a kid, I was hearing this, oh, they're not going to be here for long. They didn't know. They're going to go. And we always had this hope. We're also trying to figure out, how do I survive in this situation, right? So yes, we were quiet, because we're trying to find that balance of, when is it I can say something and not be shut up? And not. So it was just trying to figure it out. I feel that it's been 47 years now, and the whole Iran, the movement of Zan Zindagi Azadi, women like freedom, is actually a very good indication of how the youth, the young people are rising. They've had enough, not just themselves, but hearing these stories from generations that okay, and the social media and the internet, and what are the possibilities for the people their age in other countries. What is it they are enjoying that they are deprived basic human rights? So it's becoming harder and harder for them to tolerate that. So they raise their voices, which is great. So yes, they are brave and they're courageous. Hopefully all of these would amount into this regime to ultimately go away and a brighter future.
We have one question.
How do we get the younger generation in America to know about what the people are going through? They don't know. They're not really hearing about Iran this way. It's not coming across the social media feeds that way. They're not hearing about it that way. They're not hearing about it. It's sad. It's scary. You know, talking about human rights, I mean, the women, women rights, my God, women rights. I can't believe it. How do we help that?
Good question.
I'm not saying we're fixing the world in this room right now, but we were talking about it last night at a graduation party around the table. Very diverse group of people.
Yes.
It's basic women's rights.
I think it starts, it's a very good question. I think it starts right here in our community.
Yes.
And that's why our organization, we wanted to do this. Because, you know, when we do events, there's a lot of Iranian, but there's not very, and you know, our brothers and sisters, American brothers and sisters, they're not usually not as much involved. And we wanted to, you know what, we all know what's going on. But we want, you know, the Americans know, you know, the Europeans, or I want the non-Iranians to know what's going on. So it starts right here. When you're at the dinner party, every one of you, that would be, I think, what we would love, that if your next dinner party, talk about the event. Tell them the stories that you heard. And if it's interesting enough, then they are going to tell. It starts in the community. You know, that's all we can do, because unfortunately the media, and they've tried over and over again, you know, the media is just interested when the bomb falls over Tehran, then they call us. But when there's other things that we hear, the killings, you know, we call them multiple times, all the time, they're not interested in that. So, you know, it starts with the community, by educating, you know.
And being a model citizen.
Yeah.
And for the younger people too, it has to be social media. And
They are not there, they're just whatever, but you know, and the thing is, the story is interesting because the people cannot imagine that at this day and age, these things happen. So, you know, anyway, so I'm going to give.
And if you don't mind, just as to continue on what you said, Maria, more and more I see some short films or feature movies or documentaries are coming out to raise the awareness also. In fact, last month, I saw a feature movie. I was at a premiere. It's called Cast Aside the Clouds. And I would cast aside the clouds. And I recommend, if you have time to just, it is now showing in movie theaters if you would like to see that, because it does talk about the women issues, what we're talking about here, but it also gets into the whole story actually is about a Muslim man who falls in love with a Baha'i woman, and then starts navigating all of these issues related to being a Baha'i, being a woman, and everything talked about today, you would see glimpses of that in the movie, and in some situations, it would be actually unraveled. So it really brings the learnings about this, and to your point, it could be something you could share. I'm not talking about just this movie, but other things as you come across, especially for the younger generation living in the US, because they take it for granted that everybody in the world is the same. No, it's not. And how we make a difference is the key here.
Can I get a round of applause for our?
And can we get a round of applause for our amazing moderator? I want to thank all of you for being here. I also want to thank our panelists, our wonderful moderator who have devoted their time, volunteered their time on a Saturday afternoon, which is beginning of June, all these graduations, parties, all these things, and they have come here. They have volunteered to come here. We are really thankful to all of you. And to all of you who joined us, who spent a Saturday afternoon with us to learn about Iran, we really appreciate that. That's what we're about. That's what we want to try to keep doing. We hope you stay involved with us and you continue to come to our events. And if you have suggestions for events, we would love to hear that. We would love to continue these conversations. And please stay in touch. Follow us on Follow Iranians. And please let us know when your graduation happens. We would love to be there when you defend us, if we can.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Wonderful. Please let us know. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
This is my wife, Kathy. But you know, he's in better shape because they're starting to, remember the first day he passed out? Yeah. Yeah, but now he's getting stronger and thank you again for last night. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Mary. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get one, to get with Billy Arani, the Regine Wines about how that. 1, 2, 3, I need to trust.
Did you take it with this in Cuba?
I didn't get the QR code, but I got the, you can't
Take pictures with this.
I got the symbol with
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm on.